Today, my guest is Marcela Porto, an ESG specialist and head of the brand and communication of Suzano. Suzano is a Brazilian pulp and paper company with a presence in over 80 countries. We discuss in this episode how the ESG metrics have a very close relationship with innovation and value creation. Today, in this episode, I have as a co-host Adriana Machado. Adriana is the founder of Bria Institute. Bria Institute is a benefit corporation, B Corp, established in the state of Florida with a global outreach. Driving by a systemic approach, Bria Institute explores interconnections and offers tangible contributions in the areas of leadership, entrepreneurship, digital transformation, sustainable development, resilience, and the impact economy. Welcome, Adriana. I am really happy to have you today as a co host.
Thank you, JC. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Adriana, I would like to start this conversation by saying that the world becomes more concerned with combating privacy issues associated to climate and social injustice. The environmental, social, and governance ESG movement has gained momentum to ensure companies are doing their part, reporting transparently not only to investors but also to employees, consumers, and all others stakeholders on the negative impact to the environment and society, and also coming up with plans to drive regeneration all through the lenses of ESG. Adriana, what do you think about this momentum that we are having with the ESG movement?
Well, companies are formed by leaders who constantly make decisions and drive impact. More and more companies are becoming aware of their role to lead the way towards positive impact. And this positive impact is the direct result of responsible and conscious leadership.
Perfect. Adriana, maybe you can introduce our guest who is in Brazil right now, in Sao Paulo, Marcela Porto.
It's my pleasure. So, Marcela Porto is the head of communications and brand at Suzano, the world's leading eucalyptus pulp producer. Her professional experience was built in complex contexts, navigating from the public to the private sector. She started out as a public policy consultant, migrated to the corporate world through government relations, embraced sustainability and family business, and today she leads the communications, branding, and reputation efforts of one of Brazil's largest companies, Suzano. So welcome, Marcela. It's great to have you.
Welcome, Marcela.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you today, speaking of an agenda that's so important for us. So thanks again.
So let me start by asking you a question, Marcela. In your opinion, what kind of challenges do companies have in the implementation of ESG metrics?
Well, Adri, I believe the challenges differ a lot depending on the sector that the company operates. So, for instance, service companies, they encountered this agenda much later and they usually struggle to engage their employees on the theme. B2B companies, they face the challenge of bringing sustainability to their products, even without charging a premium for that sometimes. They also struggle with balancing marketing with conscious consumption, for example. Some companies have huge challenges with circular economy, having to create complex reverse logistics systems to guarantee accountability of their products' life cycles. There's also, of course, the challenge of valuing ESG investment to make sure that it drives business value creation. In our case, I believe that due to the nature of our business, which depends directly on natural cycles and to the positive relationship with the communities where we operate, this topic has always been essential for us. So, since 2019, though, after our merger process, we understood that being the world leader in our sector, we needed to consolidate our role as a reference in the ESG movement and help other companies and sectors raise their bar on ESG. So we began a huge effort to analyze our social, environmental, financial, and governance performance in a more systemic manner, leading to a structural change in our operating standards, in new product and market developments, and also in how we engage with our stakeholders. There was still a big challenge, which was how to progressively materialize this effort in all of our deliverables, processes, and relationships. We understood that we had to keep improving the performance, but we needed public commitments. So in February 2020, we released our commitments to renewing life, through which we made public and ambitious commitments that must be carried out by 2030, aligning with Paris Agreement and the UN's SDGs.
Marcela, in my opinion, when the ESG metrics merge with innovation, have an enormous impact. So status quo is not an option anymore. I read the company report, the 2020, and the CEO mentioned the term innovability. What that means, this term? Can you elaborate a little bit what involved?
Sure, sure. Innovability is actually one of our main brand attributes, and its meaning is basically innovation applied to sustainability, which is how we drive the regeneration effort in our business. So we believe innovability is present in virtually every process where we design a better model to tackle a challenge that drives sustainability. So from our sustainable forest management to using the best available technology in the production, and all the way to developing new solutions for our renewable material, which is the tree, we can see innovability materializing. To give you some examples, for instance, we are partners with a Finnish textile company called Spinova, who developed a new textile fiber produced by a mechanical spinning method that uses less than half the water and chemicals used in cotton and viscose production, for example. It also reduces CO2 emissions by 60%. We're also working with global oil majors to develop a biopetroleum solution that will reduce the levels of pure petroleum fuel. So we're committed to making more sustainable alternatives to plastic products. And for that, we have been joining efforts with several partners, always looking into the innovability concept.
That's great. Marcela, to create value through ESG metrics, we should put aside sometimes the theory and take action, right? This action have to do with value creation, as you mentioned before, opportunities, and sometimes change the business model to capitalize our strategy. According to Suzano's report, the company implementing value creation model. Would you mind to share with us some of the main outputs that the company has already?
Yes, yes, of course. Well, the concept of stakeholder value is based on the principle of creating shared value, which means that as important as creating value for shareholders is creating value that is shared with our various stakeholders who are part of the ecosystem in which we operate. So all society benefits, for example, when our organization works to replace raw materials of fossil origin with more sustainable solutions. Also, we all benefit from education and income generation programs geared toward neighboring communities. This fronts, they're seeking this convergence are many and they're growing very fast. And as you mentioned, our annual report, that's in accordance with the GRI and also the International Integrated Reporting Framework. We try to demonstrate the value creation process of our business by means of capitals, such as financial capital, manufactured capital, intellectual capital, human capital, social and relationship capital, and of course, natural capital. So, this way, we explain the impacts generated on society from the interactions between the production process, the stakeholders, and the business model itself over the years. So, to give you some examples of how that works, when we talk financial capital, we mention forest based investments, the expansion and maintenance of our commercial forests and also native areas. Talking about intellectual capital, for example, we find partnerships with academia, the development of studies and patents. When we talk about social and relationship capital, that's where we mention all of our stakeholders, such as certifiers, civil society, communities, governments, investors, NGOs, and so on. And of course, when we talk about natural capital, that's where we're dealing with water, soil, native forest and restored areas, climatic conditions, biodiversity, and also the natural cycles.
Yeah, it's awesome. I see that you're doing a lot already in Suzano in terms of ESG, and integrating this is a big task. So I would like to ask you about the role of the leaders, leaders such as yourself in this ESG process. How do you see the role of leaders like you up to now to get to the point where you are and moving forward?
Yes, Dee, that's a very good question. And I think that depends on how mature the organization is regarding ESG. In our case, ESG is really embedded since it's been there for many years and it's deeply rooted on our business strategy. But still, we have to make sure that the information is aligned. And as you can see, it's many fronts that we have towards ESG. So we have to make sure that the organization is aware of that, that the goals are clear, and that we're all moving in the same direction, right? And also we have to make sure that the culture of innovability it's continuously growing stronger, so that we know where to look for and how to get there. And as I mentioned earlier, I believe that having public commitments is a very strong way to engage the organization. And that's something that we as leaders have to keep pursuing to make this public commitments, because they really make it clear that we're working on something bigger here, right? That is outside of the company's walls. So that's very, very engaging. And also, as leaders, at least I strongly believe that linking ESG goals to the leadership compensation has huge impact, not only in the engagement but also in the education process of this leadership. So we have like 100% of our team with clear sustainability goals driving our compensation, and I believe that is something that has to go on in order for us to educate our leadership and that they can educate the teams and make that a continuous movement.
Marcela, I would like to add this. I listen a podcast where the CEO of Pricewaterhouse shared his insights about the ESG, and he mentioned very interesting viewpoint. He said that reality is that the world is demanding information about the role that we are playing in the society in different forms, like consumers, employees, stakeholders, etc. So it's something like we have to take note. Is there anything that you would like to add, Marcela?
Now, just constructing a little bit on your point, JC, and thanks for the opportunity to share some of our efforts with you. I think there's another huge challenge that we didn't comment today, that is maintaining transparent dialogue, and that's something that we're doing here today. And I'd like to really point out that's a lifelong learning process, and I confess that we were not so educated on that. That's something that we're still learning in our company, and to get it up to speed we hosted this last June our first ESG call, which will from now on be an annual agenda for the company where we gather our stakeholders, we show them our progress in our commitments, and we get to talk to them and answer questions, including the hard ones. So I think keeping the dialogue open and keeping it transparent is something really, really important for us to keep this agenda moving forward.
Exactly. Adriana, you would like to add anything?
Oh, I just would like to thank Marcela for sharing this wonderful, best practice in the corporate world with us. I know how big Suzano is and how seriously it is considering this topic. So, congratulations for the great work you're doing, and I wish you all the best as a leader in a leading company in this very challenging moment of our world and humanity. So, thank you, Marcela, for being with us.
Perfect. Marcela, where people can reach more information about Susano?
Well, our website is suzano.com.br, and we're all over LinkedIn and also Instagram. So do follow us to keep up on what's going on. And thank you again very much, JC and Adriana, for the opportunity. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Adriana, where people can contact with you and Bria Institute?
Thank you, JC. So we have a LinkedIn page, bria.institute, and also a website. So anybody can follow us in social media. It will be a pleasure. And stay tuned for more on Bria.
Adriana, thank you for being my co host in this episode.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to always be with you and to talk about relevant topics for our times.
Thank you so much, Marcela, for time. It was a pleasure to have you today as a guest in my podcast. And thank you, Adriana, as well. I am JC Giraldo from Boston, United States. Thank you so much to everyone.